And for anybody who has ever been an entrepreneur, you're going to encounter, if you have not encountered failure, then you haven't tried something, you haven't tried hard enough in pursuing something.
Yo, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to Black Excellence Daily. I'm your host, Sean Croxton. Thank you so much for tuning in. We've got Earl Graves Jr., also known as Butch Graves, on the show today. His father was the founder of Black Enterprise Magazine. And today, Butch is going to answer a couple of audience questions. I have a couple of thoughts before we get to Butch. Number one is this. I've been talking quite a bit about my comments. I read a lot of comments. I read all of my comments on Instagram. Most of them are amazing. Some of them drive me absolutely crazy. And one comment that I see fairly frequently is that banks will not fund Black startups, like new Black startups. Here's the truth. Banks generally don't fund anybody's startup, regardless of what group it is, no matter what your skin color is. It's just too much of a risk. I'm an investor in several businesses, and these businesses did not go to banks to fund their startups. They went to people, to friends, associates, people on their network, private investors. You do that first, and then later on, once you've built something, and as he talks about today, you have a plan for scaling the business, then you go to the banks. But thinking that the bank is not going to fund your startup just because you're Black, that's just not how it works. That's just not the truth. They generally don't fund anybody's startup. Number two, failure is part of the process. If you become an entrepreneur, as Dr. Claude talked about on Tuesday, you will fail. Like you're just guaranteed. Nobody is an entrepreneur who has not failed. I started up a nutrition bar company 5 or 6 years ago, and we failed. It wasn't really because of a lack of sales. It's because of I just did not like my partner at all. We had some major friction. We had very different ideas when it came to growing the business, but that was a failure. But the thing is, you keep going. I hesitate to mention his name, but I get irritated when I hear people, either in real life or on the news, talk about Donald Trump's failed businesses. Oh, he failed with the casinos. He failed with the stakes. He failed with his university. I go, duh. Like, that's nothing to make fun of. That is the process. That is part of being an entrepreneur and a business owner. You are going to fail. But you just go from failure to failure to failure, keeping that same good attitude, right? And then from the lessons that you learn through the failures, you hit it big. But you're never going to hit it big without those failures. It just doesn't work that way. Life is always going to give you obstacles. The universe or God, whatever you believe in, is always going to say, it's going to ask the question, are you serious about this? Because I'm going to give you these obstacles. You're going to have to deal with these failures just so I can make sure that you're serious about this. But most of us will quit on our first failure. But you have to keep going. Even though people may make fun of your bankruptcies or whatever, if you actually look at a lot of the successful people, like Walt Disney was on the verge of bankruptcy, like most of his career. You know, we've read about different people who have gone through bankruptcy after bankruptcy, but then they became like multimillionaires or billionaires. They just had to go through it. So if you're not failing, my friends, you're not doing it right. If you're not struggling, you're not doing it right. I have a lot of people like this comment that I posted the other day on Instagram. It's like, I don't understand where a lot of us Black folks get this idea that struggle is exclusive to us, that no other group has to deal with the struggle of building businesses, like it's supposed to be easy for them. Like, that's not how it works. You're going to struggle. You're going to fail. It's going to be hard. You're going to learn lessons. But in the end, you will succeed if you keep on going. Butch Graves is coming up.
Good afternoon. My name is Letitia Manuel. I'm the founder and CEO of Summit Professional Consulting, a business management consulting firm. So because this session was going to be entitled How to Score Big in Business, Butch, what would you say with Black Enterprise? We all know the history of the company. What would you give us for advice on how to score big in business?
Well, first off, I think the biggest challenge for Black-owned businesses or small businesses, I'm not going to say just Black-owned businesses, but for smaller businesses, is that you focus too much on the raising of capital. And if I just had the money, then I'd be able to get this deal done. And the truth of the matter is the greatest obstacle for small businesses is not access to capital, it's scale. And so if you wanted to do business with Nationwide, you can't be a business that can only supply them 15 of X. They might need 150,000 of those things. And so if I were to focus on one thing, I would say it's for small business to become bigger businesses is you have to focus on how you can get to scale on whatever the product or service you're going to provide is going to be. And generally you can get to scale is by merging our businesses together rather than trying to be the CEO, the owner, 100 different titles you have for your business, but yet the business generates $100,000 in revenue. That is not a business that corporate America can do business with because you're not at size of scale. So focus on scale and getting your business to scale more so than if I could just have this money, I will become better.
Hi, I'm O.D. Harris with Ready, Set, Go Foundation. My question that I have for you is, when you started business, can you just talk to us about some of your failures and some of your successes? And when did you land your first major contract?
Well, I can't speak to how this Black enterprise is starting the business because I didn't start Black Enterprise. But I can certainly speak about other things that we've started in that way. My father started Black Enterprise back in 1970. I can talk to you about a gazillion failures, but failures are only the road to a success. And for anybody who has ever been an entrepreneur, you're going to encounter, if you have not encountered failure, then you haven't tried something, you haven't tried hard enough in pursuing something. So we have a series of things that we've tried that were seemingly a success, but had to adjust and it turned into something that was good. I'll use one by way of example. That was an event. For many years, we hosted a Black Enterprise Ski Challenge. Now, anyone here who ever attended the Black Enterprise Ski Challenge? I see 4 or 5 hands. We loved the event. Great event, what have you. The problem is, it was very expensive. It was always out in Colorado. And we couldn't get sponsors to sponsor an event that had no business angle to it, right? This event has a business angle to it, right? Sponsors get something out of it. They're talking to people who can be of substance. Watching Black people swoops down the slope out in Colorado while eating, pork sandwiches on a hill was not something we could get sponsors to say, oh, please sign me up for 2 or 3 years of this. So while it was a fun event and people really liked it, it was not something that was sustainable over a period of time. So I wouldn't call it a failure per se, but it was not something that was going to work. Now, the bigger mistake people keep is when they keep trying to make something work when it's obvious it's not going to work. And you have to be able to shut it down when it's not going to work and then, pivot. We pivoted from that event and shut it down and created the Women of Power Summit, right? And so how many here have been to the Women of Power Summit? Okay. So it is arguably our largest and most successful event that we do right now. But so out of that, call it failure, rose a great success, but it really happened because we were prepared to make the decision quickly to stop something, pivot, and create something else. And that tends to be, sometimes sometimes we fall in love with the idea more than what the business model will dictate. Don't fall in love with your idea so much that you can't make an adjustment or pivot to what makes sense, right? For those of you who think that you've got I use this all the time, a barbecue sauce. And they go, I have the world's best barbecue sauce that I created. My grandmother's recipe, nobody has seen anything like it in the world. Problem is that, and then they go to talk to Walmart. Walmart already sells 135 different barbecue sauces. Literally. So the fact that you think that your barbecue sauce is great does not mean that the person who's the tester at Walmart is going to think that this is much different than the other 135 that they sell. Pivot and try something new, and don't be afraid to fail. Failure is nothing more than a road to success.
That was Butch Graves wrapping up the week. You can watch today's talk on YouTube. It's called Ask Butch. All right, my friend. Hope you enjoyed today's talks. Get signed up for the book club at scbookclub.com. Pick up your copy of The Confident Mind. Start reading it. We'll be discussing the intro as well as the first chapter on Wednesday, September 10th. Again, go to scbookclub.com. Leave a 5-star rating and a review for the show on Apple Podcasts. Much appreciated. Also, follow me on Instagram at Sean Croxton. I'm out. Peace.